Hello, humanoids and fiends. Halfling Hannah here from halflinghobbies.com, where you can find everything you need to create environments that inspire adventure. Today, we're going to be talking about something deadly. No, it's not monsters. It's diseases. Here are 5 diseases in Dungeons & Dragons to add intrigue, mystery, and intensity to your next campaign. Number 1, sewer plague. So the sewers can be a great way for your party to travel stealthily and unseen through the city, but it's not always the safest option. Sewers are filled with rats and other disgusting things that can carry diseases. After being bitten by such a creature, a player must make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 13. On a failed save, 14 days later, symptoms of sewer plague begin to show. Players infected with sewer plague suffer 1 point of exhaustion, receive half healing from hit dice, and receive no healing from a long rest. After each long rest, the player must make a DC 11 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, they receive another point of exhaustion. On a successful save, exhaustion points are reduced by 1. A player is healed when their exhaustion points reach 0. This disease can also be cured by a lesser restoration spell or by the paladin's ability to lay on of hands. Spells, such as Healing Word and Cure Wounds, have no effect on this disease. Sewer plague is especially fun for low-level characters who have just discovered this new and exciting way to traverse the city. Because it doesn't show up until several days later, many players may not even know why they are starting to experience these effects, which can lead to some fun roleplay to try and figure out exactly what this disease is and how it can be cured. I highly recommend this for lower levels to add intensity and some consequences to the actions without them being too horrible. Most players can make a DC 11 before they reach 3 exhaustion points and die. There is a risk of death. Disease number 2, eye rot. Adventurers rely on their sight for pretty much everything. From spotting danger to making attacks, sight is very important. What would happen if that was to suddenly start to go away? Well, that's exactly what eye rot does. Found in bogs and swamps and contaminated water, eye rot gradually starts to make victims go blind. If a player ingests the water for any reason, whether it's drinking it or being dragged through the water under combat and accidentally ingesting it, they must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or be infected with eye rot. The symptoms of eye rot begin to manifest after a long rest. Symptoms include painful irritation in the eyes, which then leads to bleeding from the eyes. Every long rest after symptoms first appear, the condition worsens. Players suffer a -1 penalty to ability checks that rely on sight. The first day, it's -1. Second day, a -2. The third day, a -3. Fourth day, a -4. And then on the 5th day, it's -5, and players suffer from the blinded condition. If players have a proficiency in nature or medicine, they can choose to make a check to see if they know what the condition is and if they know what a cure for it might be. I recommend a DC of 13 for this. On a successful roll, players will know that this disease can only be cured by a rare flower called Sightbright. An ointment can be made from this rare flower, which is also found in these same swamps and bogs, which can then be applied to the eyes. The ointment stops the condition from worsening, and after 3 applications, cures the disease. Now, I always recommend that you allow players to search for this once a day. This would be a DC of 15 to 16 because it is a rare flower, and they only get 1 roll for the day. Now remember, they need 3 doses of this, which means they need 3 flowers, which could take up to 3 days, if they succeed on their roll for that day. Now I do let all of the players make this roll, so if any one of them gets a 15 or a 16, then they found a flower for that day. If none of them do, then the condition worsens and there's nothing that they can do. I do want to note that the book doesn't specifically say that while the sight is worsening that it can be healed by magical means, but it would probably be a pretty safe assumption. Either a paladin's Lay on of Hands ability, a lesser or greater restoration spell would do the trick as well. However, if you want to make this a more flavorful side quest, you could make it to where Sight Bright is the only cure for this disease. If blinded by Sight Bright, a player cannot be healed by the flower. The flower only cures the disease itself, not the end result of blindness. They can only be cured of blindness through a lesser or greater restoration spell or the paladin ability of Lay on of Hands. Number 3. Cackle fever. Everyone loves a good laugh until you can't stop. Feeling like something straight out of the Joker, cackle fever makes its victims laugh hysterically until they die. This disease specifically targets humanoids. Gnomes being the exception, they're immune. I guess they're too happy anyway. Victims of this disease often are taken with fits of mad laughter. When exposed to cackle fever, players need to make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 10. On a failed save, the effects of the disease manifest 1d4 hours later. An infected player gets 1 level of exhaustion immediately when the disease takes effect, and it cannot be removed until the disease is cured. In addition, any time that there is a stressful environment, such as combat, a nightmare, fights, anything scary, players must make another Constitution saving throw with a DC of 13. On a failed save, players take 1d10 of psychic damage and are taken over by a fit of mad laughter, in which they are incapacitated and cannot do anything else. This mad laughter lasts for 1 minute, but players can choose on their turn to make another Constitution saving throw to end the effect early. Here's the fun part. While taken over with this fit of mad laughter, any player that is within 10 feet of them must also make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 10 or be infected themselves. If they succeed, they are immune to that person's mad laughter for 24 hours. If they fail, 1d4 hours later, the effects begin to manifest in them as well. To cure cackle fever, you essentially have to wait it out. After each long rest, a player must make a DC 13 saving throw. If they succeed, then the DC is reduced by 1d6 points until it reaches 0 and the disease is cured. If they fail, it remains the same and they have to endure the effects until they reach 0. Cackle fever can also be cured with a greater restoration spell or the paladin's ability Lay on of Hands. Now, the book doesn't really specify where cackle fever can be found. Sewer plagues in the sewers, and eye rot is in the swamps and bogs, but where's cackle fever? DM kitty break. Because the book doesn't specify where cackle fever can be found, feel free to put it wherever you want. Here are some of my favorite suggestions. The adventurers enter into a tower, far away from civilization. It's been sealed for a long time. They don't find anything in there, except a moldy smell. The long-sealed tower of a mad wizard who was experimenting on something truly dreadful. In a dungeon, your players find a large, magically locked chest. On the outside of it, they see icons depicting people rolling on the ground holding their sides, writhing in apparent pain. The rogue finally manages to unlock it, but inside, he finds nothing. A villain knows that he's been beaten, but he's not leaving without leaving a gift in return. He throws a magic orb which shatters, releasing a gas. Oddly, it doesn't have an immediate effect. Disease number 4, madness. Now, there are many reasons why players might slowly or immediately go mad. From making a deal with an evil entity in exchange for power, to losing someone close to them. Although, that never happens. Or even just the stress of daily adventuring life. I mean, you got monsters that look like they're straight out of a nightmare. You're slaughtering entire villages of orcs. There's a lot of stress. It might lead to some mental breakdowns. Although there are many reasons why your players could go mad, you still need to use caution here, as this is a very serious effect. Madness affects everything from the way that they enter combat to the way that they deal with the other players at the table. So enter with caution. But that being said, when something truly traumatic happens, it's a great idea to bring in some elements of madness. When your party experiences something truly horrific, such as witnessing human sacrifice or seeing their entire village that they grew up in burned to the ground by a red dragon, then you should make them roll a wisdom or charisma saving throw. The DC really depends on the closeness and the impact of the event. The village thing might be high because, well, it's their village, maybe 15, while seeing the human sacrifice of people that they don't know is still traumatic, but maybe lower, 13. If they fail, then choose from one of the madness charts, which you can find by going to halflinghobbies.com and searching diseases. There are 3 main categories for madness. There's short-term madness, long-term madness, and indefinite madness. Short-term madness lasts 1d10 minutes and can include anything from being stunned, being frightened, weeping or laughing madly and being incapacitated, or a wide variety of other things. Again, for the chart, check out halflinghobbies.com for the full list. Long-term madness lasts for 1d10 hours. And this can include things like feeling compelled to do a specific activity over and over, such as washing the hands after seeing a sacrifice or counting coins. The character could also lose their ability to speak for a few hours or be blinded or deafened from the effects of a truly horrific incident. And then finally, indefinite madness lasts until it's cured. These become permanent character traits and flaws, such as believing that bad people are out to get you and they're everywhere that you're going to turn, or becoming a kleptomaniac, or even trying to become more and more like someone else. These effects can only be cured by a greater restoration spell, or, depending on what you want to do, a wish spell. For a more short-term cure, calm emotions can subdue the effects of madness, but only for a little while. They don't cure it outright. Lesser restoration can cure short-term and long-term effects, but only a greater restoration or a wish spell can cure the effects of indefinite madness. And finally, if your players have kind of grown out of these things, almost all of them can be cured by a paladin, which, if you have a paladin you're in a group, you might consider saying, well, you have to be at a certain level in order to cure this disease with your lay on of hands ability. Otherwise, diseases just kind of don't matter. But I played in lots of groups where we didn't have a paladin, and these diseases would have been a real and serious threat. So if your group does have a paladin, maybe consider that, or, kill him off and then use diseases. But if your group has kind of gotten past some of these lower level diseases, although I still think that there's a place for them and they can be really cool, you might consider making your own disease. To make your own disease, you'll want to consider a few things, such as incubation time. How long does it take for your disease to take effect? Is it immediate? Does it take a few minutes, a few hours, a few weeks? Real-life diseases have incubation times that can go from 5 minutes to 7 days. How long does yours take? And how does it spread? Is it spread through direct contact, through the air, through bodily fluids? Or is it spread through some action that the infected player does, like Cackle fever through the laugh? Decide how it's going to spread and how long it takes to incubate to start making your disease. Next up, you'll want to think about symptoms. Your disease should have some kind of identifiable symptom, something that clearly points out it is this disease, like eye rots, bleeding from the eyes, or Cackle fever's mad laughter. What is the symptom of your disease? Common symptoms could include exhaustion, fever, disorientation. Does your disease give them a penalty towards perception because it makes them hallucinate and they don't know what's real and what isn't? Or does it simply exhaust and drain them, giving them negative penalties towards strength or dexterity? It's up to you, but you need to pick a symptom, or a couple of them, and make sure that it's clearly identifiable as the disease that you're creating. Symptoms should also worsen over time and lead either to death or a permanent effect, such as eye rot leading to blindness. What does your disease lead to? Paralysis, like polio in the modern world? Does it create horrific scars or maybe even cause fingers or limbs to fall off, making it impossible to hold a sword anymore? It's up to you, but make sure you know how long it's going to take your disease to get to that point and what that point is. Then finally, a cure. Your disease should have a cure unless you just want to make it this all-powerful, horrific event that a villain unleashes on the world, and the only way to cure it is to, I don't know, kill the villain. Or maybe the villain is the only one who knows the cure to it. It's up to you. But there should be some kind of a cure. You should decide which spells work and which spells don't. Will the Paladin's ability work on it, or does it have to have a greater restoration spell? Is there some rare flower or herb or concoction that can be made to cure this disease? Can the players somehow overcome it naturally over time? Never be afraid to make your players seek out powerful clerics or paladins to fully understand a disease and to find out what the cure for it is. Some diseases are curses from the gods, such as a lesser god cursing an entire region because an artifact from his shrine was stolen, and the only way to cure that disease is to return the artifact. Some other ones are cured by natural means, though they may be hard to find. Some diseases are very rare, others are quite common. Some are very aggressive, and some only certain people get. What does your disease look like? What are its symptoms? And how can you cure it? If you're looking at those things, then you're sure to make a truly deadly disease that'll bring a lot of fun to your campaign. Monsters are great. You gotta love them. Combat is amazing. But if you're looking for a more subtle way to create some real tension in your campaign, try throwing in some diseases. There are a few things that hit the heart and soul of a player, like seeing a rare and fatal disease ravish a town. Seeing the effects of such a disease can even lead to some madness, maybe. Seeking cures before time runs out, lives on the line. That sounds like a fun campaign to me. So if you're looking for something a little different than just straight up combat, try one of these diseases, or maybe make one of your own. If you made your own disease and it worked really well, make sure to leave it in the comments below so that all of the other DMs out there can use your awesome disease too. Until next time, may your game have advantage, my friends. Halfling Hannah, signing out.